So this is character in place. So what we're dealing with in character in place is kind of just that. Like, what's the character of the Portlands going to be in the future, and what are the different places that we're going to be creating? We always bring this up. We're doing a 50-year plan. It's a really long-term vision. What we're trying to do is both provide guidance for the near, medium, and the longer term so that we know what to expect tomorrow, but that we also can provide some flexibility for what is yet to come. We don't have a crystal ball. I'm a good planner, but 50 years down the road is a long way. You'll have seen in the other presentations, this is the overall sort of vision and structure. So what we are suggesting here by way of character of place is nested within this overall structure plan. The structure plan consists of 5 sort of key components. We're stitching to the city with new north-south connections. We're uniting the harbor and the wilds. We're creating a resilient urban fabric with a system of green and blue that is using the exceptions and the exceptional of the Portlands as a basis. Uh-oh, I'm not working. Oh, there we go. So the key things that we're dealing with in this presentation are land use. We touch on parks and open spaces. We talk about biodiversity, character and heritage, affordable housing views, built form, sustainability, community infrastructure, and sort of public art, but not really. The presentation was too long, so we cut it. But there is a board in the open house on public art if you want to take a look at it. So places in the Portlands. This is the Portlands overlaid onto downtown Toronto. So you can basically fit all of downtown Toronto into the Portlands. That's just how big it is. When you think about downtown Toronto, it's not just one place. It's actually a whole series of different places. And so you overlay all of those different places onto the Portlands and you go, geez, we're not just creating one place in the Portlands. We actually should be creating a whole bunch of different places. The other thing, we took some inspiration. We've been doing this for 2 years. We started to wax poetic near the end. But this is a quote from Kevin Lynch's The Image of the City that I'm just going to read out. We were thinking that it really captures and encapsulates what the Portlands is. So like a piece of architecture, the city is a construction in space, but one of a vast scale, a thing perceived only in the course of long spans of time. At every instant, there is more than the eye can see, more than the ear can hear, a setting or a view waiting to be explored. And there's so much diversity and such great assets in the Portlands that we really think that, as this area transforms, those will come more alive and will form the character of the area. So we always highlight, so we have the blue and the green. These are big moves. These are big places that are really going to help shape and define the character of the area. So you have the River Valley. You have the Greenway that connects all the way down to Lake Ontario. You've got Tommy Thompson Park in the Spit. You've got the Hearn, and it's iconic. It's monolithic. It is the Portlands. You've got the Commissioner's Transfer Station with its 137-meter-high stack. And then you have the other green spaces that connect down along Leslie. You then layer on top of that the heritage attributes, the thing that makes the Portlands unique, that tells its story. It went from marsh to port to power to port, to now what? To what we're going to be creating next. So these are all sort of foundational and inform how the area is actually going to develop out. So what we then do is we take those character-defining elements and then we create a series of memorable and unique urban districts that take their cue from these exceptions and the exceptional, and that also helps us to achieve broader city building objectives. And you create a series of memorable and unique districts that are all different, that all have their own character and their own attributes, their own uses, their own function, and their own character. And I'll go through a couple of them. So Villiers Island, there's a whole separate presentation on Villiers Island, so I'm not going to go into that much, but it's an island. Like, how cool is that? You also have Polson Quay and South River. One of the things about Polson Quay is Lafarge has a concrete terminal there. They bring in their concrete powder by boat. That then gets distributed all throughout the city and is what's helping to build and grow our city. It is heavy industrial use. We're not sure at this particular time if sensitive uses can get introduced. So we think that probably in the long term, it's an area that will evolve. So this is our evolution narrative. So it might be something today, but we're going to put the structure in place to allow it to be something in the future. We're also going to do more detailed study when we get to precinct planning to see if there's a way that we could actually mitigate the impacts associated with the Lafarge operation. In the Film Studio District, we're going to create 3 separate little districts. It's a big area, 57 hectares. So there's the McCleary District, which is going to be a new mixed-use community that's bookended by two great open spaces, the Dawn Greenway and the expanded McCleary Park. It's going to be across from the Unilever Precinct, where we foresee a major office development, providing those live-work synergies in close proximity and encouraging active transportation. We have the existing Pinewood Toronto studios in the Media City and really trying to build and grow that industry. And what we heard in our consultations to date is having a whole range of different types of uses is really advantageous and allows Toronto to be more competitive in getting productions and big productions filming in Toronto. Then there's the Turning Basin District, so it's got great waterside edges. It is in proximity to existing employment areas. We do see it as continuing to be an employment area, but an employment area that's different, that's got a robust structure, that has minimum building heights of 3 or 4 or 5 stories, good quality materials, really creating a great new district for employment purposes in the city. Then you have the Warehouse District. Right now, it's a mix of heavy industry and film studios. We see it transitioning over time to lighter industrial, but in new, modern 21st century industrial buildings that could be our future Liberty Village, that could be something different in 50 years. And then you have the main port area. So you have the East Port, Southport East, and Southport. Those will be where the industry of the port, or the theater of the port, comes to play, where the active edge of the dock wall is reserved and optimized for port purposes, all interspersed with these green and these heritage attributes. And then there's the Maritime Hub, which is my favorite. But the idea with that is we've got this great recreational and great open space south of there. We want to have employment intensification and industrial and port intensification. There's zero amenity. There's nowhere to get a cup of coffee. So this is about creating that amenity, creating a gateway, creating a hub for recreational users and for the employment. So those are the different types of places and the different types of districts that we see in the Portlands. This is all balanced and enhanced with an enhanced land use direction that provides flexibility for the future and allows for the evolution of some of these key areas. We brought forward a land use direction to City Council last July, and we said that we were going to continue to do some work on it, and so we did that through the last year. And we focused on 4 key activities. So ensuring a critical mass, so making sure that the communities that we are planning in the Portlands have enough people to be self-sufficient, to support the community infrastructure, and to be viable communities. There was also film sector consultation. We did a lot of it. We met with location managers, production managers, and producers. I'm still here presenting, so I didn't get discovered, clearly. And then we also met with film studio owners and operators to better understand the industry. I'm a planner. I don't make films. So I needed to know how the industry worked better. And then we also have a film and entertainment office at the city, and so we've been working closely with them and getting their feedback and input on the plan. From a land use compatibility perspective, we are talking about maintaining industry. We are talking about industry that's indicated that they're going to stay. So we did a more detailed noise and air quality feasibility study to help inform our recommendations. We want to make sure that people have a great place to live. We also want to make sure that the industry can continue to operate. So it's about trying to ensure compatibility between those. And then the last is long-term city building objectives. The Portlands is strategically located close to the downtown. We want to make sure that we have a true mix. We want to grow an important sector for the city, which is the film sector. It employs 25,000 people. $1.23 billion in production last year. So it's an important sector for the city, and we want to grow it. We also want to maintain a land base and ensure orderly development. We don't want to be leapfrogging all over the place, which is costly from an infrastructure perspective. So what makes the most sense today to start developing out? So that resulted in 4 refinement foci. So complete mixed-use communities, a film-friendly future, industry and port thrives, and growing and sustaining our economy. And when you kind of map that out and you put pen to paper, that's what it starts to look like. So in the near term, 2 complete mixed-use communities in Villiers Island in the McCleary District. The amount of land in those 2 areas and the market absorption that we're anticipating today, we're probably good for 25, 30, 35 years. It's a big area. It's going to take a long time to develop out. In the longer term, or if technologies advance and we can come up with a really quiet noise baffler thing, then potentially we see Polson Key and South River evolving from more of an employment area to a mixed-use community. Then you have our film sector consultation and the film-friendly future. So in the near and medium term, trying to really generate growth in the film and media sectors. Not all film studios. There's lots of different types of uses that support the film sector. There's digital animation, there's graphic designers, all different types of creative sectors all play into the film sector. So it's those types of uses that we would want to see encouraged down here. We do identify some opportunities where there could be new studios. Studios are big, they don't have a lot of windows. We kind of don't want them on our water's edge or along the great green spaces, so we've sort of internalized them. And then what we would want to see is nice active uses along the Ship Channel and along the Don Greenway. The backlots are important to film production. This summer, Suicide Squad was filming in Toronto. It filmed on our downtown streets. It filmed at the Hearn. It filmed at Pinewood Toronto Studios, and it filmed in the backlot. And so that's just kind of how the film production industry works. And so we need to make sure we have these backlot spaces, but we also don't want those backlot spaces in the middle of our mixed-use communities. Film activity is noisy, and so we're identifying areas that are more in the employment areas where that would be a suitable use, and that's also providing synergies with the studios in the south of eastern area. The Hearn obviously continues to be a great location for location shooting. And the other thing we found in doing our consultation was Commissioners is used for car chase scenes. Who knew? And we don't actually want that in the future. With our mixed-use communities, but we think Unwin Avenue could be another kind of cool location with the wilds to the south where that could actually happen. And then we have our land use compatibility and our industrial uses. So in the East Port, transitioning from heavy industry to light industry over time and creating more synergies with south of Eastern, maximizing and optimizing the dock wall for port uses, and having employment intensification that's synergistic with the port function in those particular areas, and then allowing, Lafarge is able to continue their operations for the foreseeable future until they decide that they want to relocate somewhere else, and likewise with Ports Toronto. And what we do know is, along in Villiers Island, subject to some receptor and source mitigation, residential would be an okay use. And there isn't as much impact in the McCleary district from the industrial perspective, just where it's particularly located. So you put it all together, and what do you get? You get a land use plan. So this is what the land use direction looks like with parks and open spaces that are layered onto it. That's going to result in about 10 to 15,000 housing units and 18 to 25,000 people and 25 to 30,000 jobs, and jobs of all types. So not just office jobs, but office jobs, film jobs, industrial jobs, the whole gamut of the different types of jobs in the Portlands. The other thing that we're looking at is making sure that what does get built has longevity and is also adaptable. So we want enhanced built form direction that allows us to shape development now, but again, provide for some flexibility in the future and for creative precinct planning. A bunch of built form policy considerations that we're looking at. I'm not going to read them all out. They're on one of the open house boards. But for instance, making sure that we're creating these distinct precincts with variation in form. The Portlands is our front porch in Toronto. It juts out into Lake Ontario. It's so visible from, from the downtown and from the water's edge. So what should that skyline be? It should be unique. It should be distinct. It should highlight some of those industrial landmarks that are in the area. We want to make sure there's transition in scale to heritage buildings. We want to make sure there's pedestrian comfort year-round. We want it to be, 4 seasons, 24/7 type of place. We want minimum building heights so that we're not going to get single-story warehouse buildings that take up a lot of land. Building materiality to support longevity. Think of Liberty Village, and today it's still the old part of Liberty Village. It's still beautiful and it's vibrant, and that's the type of building that we want in the Portlands. And flexibility in design for a wide range of uses, and integration of naturalization, which is a really important thing because of the wilds. that are in the Portlands, because that is such a big part of its character. We want to make sure that that's integrated in both building, streetscape, and park design. This is the skyline of the Portlands today. I'm standing on top of Red Path Sugar, taking a picture. But you can see some of the port and industrial collage, the landmarks that are there, the Commissioner's Transfer Station, Ashbridge's Stack, the S-Rock Silos, Marine Terminal 35 and the Atlas Crane, the Hearn with its 213-meter high stack that you can see all the way from New York, Canada Cement Terminal, and the Dominion box boards. And so we want these things to still read and be visible as the area transforms. We've identified 4 different types of views that we think are important that will help to form and shape development. So postcard views, so these are, the tourist, oh, look at that, I'm gonna take a picture, it looks really pretty, or buy a postcard. You've got the focus views. So these are from outside of the Portlands looking in. This is from Broadview, the new Broadview Avenue. And so just really sort of shaping and highlighting and accentuating the different assets, in this particular case, the Hearn Chimney Stack. You've got landmark views, so these are within the Portlands that are highlighting various different landmarks. And then you've got your scenic views, so you're in the river valley and you're just taking it all in. You've got the buildings and the heritage and the green, and it's wonderful. This is just a shot of a view from the spit that we think is actually quite important. You see the city in the backdrop with the CN Tower, the Hearn stands there with all of its glory, and a city evolving and building up behind it with these features, these landmarks that are still very prevalent. These are just some examples of different types of built form that we kind of think would be suitable, the Portlands, for different types of uses. The False Creek one there, a good transition to a heritage building, and also accentuating the plaza that's surrounding the heritage, kind of like what we're thinking for the Commissioner's Hub and development around it with public art. Naturalized features adjacent to mid-rise mixed-use buildings, creating great streetscapes with active street walls, Woonarfs. Box Park in Shoreditch is kind of our inspiration for the Maritime Hub, reuse of shipping crates or other types of things, which seems to be all of the rage these days. The Miami Design District, really adaptable, resilient, functional warehouse buildings that could be something else in the future. And then just examples of other mixed-use development with a variety of built form. Biodiversity and cohabitation. So the vision for the Portlands is more than just about people and jobs. It's also about all life. And this was something that came out in some of the earlier consultations. So the renaturalization of the Don is going to contribute to the further enrichment, but we also want to make sure that as the area develops, that it's also having a contribution. This is basically the city's green system. You can see the Don Valley. The new River Valley completes that, links it back out into Lake Ontario. So we established a working group with nature enthusiasts, experts, staff, some of our stakeholder advisory committee members. Karen, I'm going to point you out, was on it. And so we just tried to brainstorm what would be a robust biodiversity framework. This is the first time we've done it in Toronto. I don't even really know if they've done it anywhere else in the world, so we're kind of trend-setting. We came up with 3 themes. So enhance the tree canopy and increase the structural complexity to allow for a wide variety of life. Connect, both big and small. Little wildlife corridors to the big natural features that are going to get constructed, and then design. So making sure that we're integrating habitat opportunities into the urban fabric through the built form. We also created 5 structural layers going from the very big to the very small. So your major natural systems, other parks and open spaces, the linkages in between are absolutely critical for how wildlife moves in and through the area. Nodes and patches, and then finally naturalized development. And you map that out and it starts to look something like this with your major natural systems, your other parks and open spaces, your liminal linkages that are linking all of these different features. And all of our street designs integrate some type of naturalized feature into them, either through tree plantings or bioswales or something else that helps wildlife to actually move. The other thing that we're identifying is rail corridors, which when we first started this group, we had no idea, but rail corridors are apparently great wildlife movement corridors. And we happen to have some of those down in the Portland, so our street designs integrate that if rail no longer gets used. And then there's nodes and patches, and this is just conceptual, but these are sort of filling in the gaps. Little bits of naturalized development here and there. A coyote comes down, he's tired, he wants a drink of water, he can get that in a stormwater management pond and then carry on his merry way. And then naturalizing development, so things like green walls, green roofs, and then naturalized stormwater features that also can provide opportunities for wildlife. Because this is the first time that we're doing it, we're also trying to think about how we're going to put this into practice. So there's an education component, a monitoring component, and we also need to establish the legal framework for doing it, like through zoning bylaws, like making sure that a certain amount of naturalized landscaping occurs, and then partnerships. So working with a wide variety of different agencies that are in this area to bring this into action. The complete and sustainable communities and employment areas is a really important component of the overall plan and of creating character and place in the Portlands. So it's envisioned to be a sustainable and resilient place that showcases new and emerging technologies as they come. 15 years, or right today, what's all the rage is net zero. 15 years from now, it might be net positive, we don't know. So we want to allow for that flexibility for that to happen. But also achieving higher standards from tomorrow. So starting with a net energy district, a net zero energy district, which basically means that we don't use more power than we're actually producing naturally within the actual area. Ecological integrity, which has a whole bunch of different facets, land, using land judiciously, making sure that we're taking care of our natural features. Human health and well-being, so complete inclusive communities, so that you could potentially, be born, grow up, and retire in the Portlands, and through all various different incomes. And climate change, making sure that it's a resilient place. What happens if there's a power outage? Can the Portland sustain itself? So these are key things that we'd like to integrate. Innovation in economy, so growing the city's economy and making sure that whatever it is that we're doing, we're constantly innovating. And then mobility and access, how people move in and through the area is important. We don't want the place to be auto-dependent. We want it to be people to get there through transit, through cycling, through walking, or through boating. Community infrastructure, we undertook a community services and facility study for the entire Portlands. Each community that we're looking at is a complete community and has the infrastructure it needs. Or will need. Each community will have a school, a community type use or a focus. There are some uses, for instance, in Villiers Island, we're identifying a pool that would be Portland's wide serving. In the Film Studio District, a big community hub in the Commissioner's Transfer Station. It's a 70,000 square foot building. So a lot of different types of uses could be included in there that would serve the broader area. And in South River and Polson Key, if residential use goes in there, we've identified a library that would also be Portland serving that would go in that particular location. And then in some of the other areas, we're identifying other infrastructure other community infrastructure that isn't really so much community serving, but still very important, like for that local community, but it's more regional serving, like an arena where people are driving with their hockey equipment, they're not taking transit. We don't particularly want those types of uses in the new mixed-use community, so we've identified locations for them in some of the employment areas with potential options that would need to be explored. And we've also been looking at EMS and fire stations and working with fire services and looking at precedents in other parts of the world, Canada and North America. We're talking about literally integrating the fire station in the base of a mixed-use building. Boston's done it, Vancouver's done it, Calgary's done it. I think we can too. In terms of affordable housing, looking at what the requirements are in the Central Waterfront Secondary Plan, so 20% affordable housing, 5% ownership, low end of market ownership, but also 4 key principles that I think we're going to enshrine and flesh out in more detail in the plan, so making sure that timely delivery. So as market housing develops, there's also affordable housing, flexibility, making sure that there's a whole bunch of different ranges of different types of housing, as well as how we actually deliver it. So working with not-for-profits, working with the private sector Permanency. We want it to be a durable community benefit. We don't want 10 years of affordable housing and then it gets transitions over to non-affordable housing. And then also clarity, so making sure that we're really clear and that it evolves over time as new solutions emerge. So then you bring all of this back together, you bring the character and place back together with the structure plan, and what you get is the plan. And that's it. Any questions?